It has been a minute.
There we go.
This podcast is a member of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts and content creators, visit bio.link/red5.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
That is crazy. And we're dying of laughter backstage here. If you didn't notice, we're having a little technical difficulties here tonight on Scarif Live. How's it going, Spencer?
It's going good beyond the difficulties.
Beyond the difficulties, yes. We usually use one stream live, and it's been acting up. Was not able to do it as hard as I tried. I reached out to the helpline, and nobody got back to me in time for us to kind of reshuffle here. So we are back on StreamYard for this this edition. So thank you everyone for coming on by. Backyard TARDIS, we see you. So thanks for stopping by. I'm gonna switch over here. And how are you, my friend?
I am doing good, doing good. Good to talk about some Star Warsy goodness.
Yeah, Star Warsy goodness. What's up, Kylo Custom Squad? What's happening? Thank you very much for joining us. I'm gonna have to do some what do you call it? Some house cleaning when we're done with this episode, because there's two YouTube posts out there, and I guess I'm gonna have to get rid of one of them because hopefully people are not waiting over there. But thank you for joining us. If you found us after our technical snafu, and to top it off, I hit our intro and it played and it played and it played, and I realized I wasn't live yet. I need a drink. I don't know about you. Spencer, I saw that you went to a convention of some sort, and I know we've been off for like 2 weeks, but in the interim between last episode and now, didn't you go to some event where other people? No,
not quite sure who you'd be thinking of, but
that was you. You posed with an author. You posed with some people. You took a picture.
Thinking of Andrew? I didn't.
No.
Last convention I would have been to would have been in March, so I haven't been to any recently.
Huh. All right.
No, I haven't done anything cool like that. I am planning on trying to go to a Star Wars con in Texas in August, if the stars align for that.
What's that one in August?
Called Rebel Scum Con.
Oh.
And Sam Witwer is going to be there, so that's the main thing that I'm wanting to go
Very
do
nice.
meet him. But yeah.
And I think after that he's heading to Chicago because what is it called? In August we get Fan Fest. Is that the right thing? Hold on a second. Let me see here, because I know I've got some folks that are in a group, and it is called not Fan Fest. I keep calling it Fan Fest. More of our technical difficulties, but Fan Expo here in Chicago in August. So we'll be heading out to that. Let's see. Kylo Custom says, I posed with Timothy Zahn. Timothy Zahn or Timothy Zahn at C2E2. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's somebody I'd love to meet, but he always just goes to the bigger conventions that aren't necessarily near me. So.
Yeah. But whenever if you live near a place where they have a convention, a couple of years ago I was in Florida in St. Petersburg, and we went to go visit my father-in-law, who used to live down there, and when we were walking around to get coffee or whatever, we just noticed like a lot of people, and then we went to some place and I asked why, seems like the hotels are kind of filled. What's going on? And they said, oh, it's the St. Petersburg Comic Book and Science Fiction Convention, the first annual. And I'm like, what?
That's cool.
So I told my wife, I'm going to that.
Nice.
So we met Charles from Conversations, who also lives down there, and we had a good time.
Awesome.
And it was the first annual, so it was kind of cool. We got to meet some people, some software developers that were there, kind of pushing
Really cool.
their new gaming products. The 501st were there. The Mandalorian Mercs, they were holding a kind of like a conference,
Sure.
and the Rebel Legion was there, showing off some of their Rebel costumes and cosplay. So it was a lot of fun. It was in a very large, like an amphitheater, which was kind of nice, but it was really cool. Science Fictionary, what is happening, Andrew? Good to see you. And so I wanted to briefly talk about this because I think it's worth mentioning. You had messaged me or tagged me on the Twitters there regarding a Captain Kirk comic book.
Yeah.
And I know we don't go to the Alpha Quadrant on Scarif podcast very much, but it was definitely worth reading that article. I guess what is it, in September or somewhere in fall?
That sounds right. Yeah.
But why don't you tell our folks what it is? What was that? Captain
The big
Kirk
thing for
Returns?
me is that Captain Kirk returns in this new IDW comic as Star Trek. All the Star Trek comics are through IDW. I don't remember the exact details of it. It doesn't help too because I'm not ultimately familiar with where it ties into Star Trek, because something about this big burn thing with everything. And
Oh, that's right. The Big Burn refers to an event that happened in the future where all warp core engines exploded.
right, and so it's tied something with that. I don't know. I was looking at it a little bit. I was like, it's interesting.
Yeah. And it happens in the future. Here it is. A new Star Trek comic will bring Captain Kirk back to life.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're going to do that, but it's always interesting to find out. And one of the cool things I like, I've told you this before and I've said it before. I usually buy comic books, even though I don't know what they are, if the covers are cool, right?
Yeah.
And I think this Star Trek comic is going to have a couple of variants. And then getting back to what I said earlier, I think, this I bought because it looked cool. I have no idea what it is.
That's awesome.
But that looks pretty cool. What else do I got here? Yeah, just all sorts of stuff. Inhumans versus X-Men #0.
Oh, there you
That
go.
was kind of a cool cover.
Here's a cover I just picked up today of Gunslinger Spawn right there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I have this handy, my variant Daredevil 600 edition signed by Charles Soule, Daredevil and Elektra. That's always cool.
Heck yeah.
Great art. But yeah, as a, I usually say that my nerd card goes both ways, so I'll probably pick this up
Right.
and see what it's all about.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah, but wonder how they're going to bring him back. But
Yeah, definitely very
stuff.
interesting.
Cool stuff. All right, Son of Dathomir, and
That's what we're here for.
yeah, I was lamenting earlier that nobody has caught that I was misrepresenting that it was a Marvel Comics recap, and it's from Dark Horse. which
Right.
I had to fix the graphic for this week, but I might have to go back and do do the other graphics because I was wrong, everybody.
Yeah, well, it's a weird transition though too, especially when like where you look at all the regular copies of it now, it shows like Marvel on it. It's with them having a license to it. It's
And
interesting.
there it is, yeah, Dark Horse. But
Originally Dark Horse at the end of their reign.
yeah, that's so sad the way you said it.
It's true though.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, but what? So we've done a couple of reviews on comic books. We did the K2SO. We did the Dark. What was it? The
Dark Visions.
Dark Visions, whatever,
Yeah.
with Darth Vader and stuff like that. And it's interesting that so we're going to talk about issue number 3, which is the cover is right here, and it obviously it has a couple of different variants, but it's what are your thoughts on everything that we've reviewed so far? Where would you place this? And I think I asked you last time, but I'm going to ask you again. Reading this particular book, and again, thanks to Vader Rapina, we sent him a nice little swag gift basket. What are your thoughts on how this story is playing out just within the 3 issues that we've read so far? I mean, obviously we've read them all, but what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, I still love it. It's so good. It feels like you're literally reading a Clone Wars episode. Each episode feels that way. I think that continues with this one. I'd say this issue in particular was another solid addition to it. I would say probably, honestly, it's my probably my least favorite of the 3, but that's not saying that it's a bad thing necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I think it felt like it got a little slower compared to the other 2.
Yeah.
But
and I think was it last week I mentioned that these stories are really jam packed with action. I mean, even the first episode had 2 really complex action sequences at the top and towards the end, and this one, right. You're right, this one slows down a little bit, but I think I guess you have to within the story. But I feel like Son of Dathomir really I think it's very Star Warsy. It's very Clone Wars for sure, and I'm kind of digging it. It's really good.
Absolutely.
So obviously, if you listened, and I just dropped episode, our second review of the second comic book in the podcast chat. If you have listened to that, or if you've been following us, so last week or 2 weeks ago, because we took a break in the middle there, there was a lot of action going on. The right. Mandalorians were attacking. There were some. Was it Black Sun was also part of Darth right. Maul's forces?
Black Sun and the Hutts backed out, but then there's that other big syndicate with them. The Pikes were with them as well.
Yeah. Reading this first page, it really, again, we mentioned that it really kind of feels like you're watching a Clone Wars episode. This really made it feel for sure that we were watching a Clone Wars episode. You've got Senator Palpatine, or no, not at this point. At this point, he's not a senator. He's Chancellor.
Yeah.
And this, I think I had some questions as far as where this kind of fit in with the overall story, and I think this issue kind of answered those questions for me a little bit. We do see Maul with no legs. He's got the prosthetics. He doesn't have like the spider legs that he's known for, but this is definitely after episode 1, and some of the events that happened. Am I reading that right?
Right. Yeah. I love this opening shot though too of just always how they portray him, where he is, everybody who's Palpatine is, and so it looks the menacing mouth there. I just love.
Yeah. So he's talking with Mace Windu, who is on I think he's on Ord Mantell, which is the planet where they just arrived, and they
right. That's the big battle or last one.
And they see evidence of that battle. They're kind of gathering their acorns and trying to see, but it's the artwork is pretty good too. I mean, look at Palpatine. Yeah. There's a nice little texture there, and I feel like, and I think that lends itself to, again, feeling like you're watching an episode of Clone Wars.
100%.
Yeah.
Something I feel like this issue kind of stood out a little more too is actually having some of those details with characters a little more in
Yeah.
this issue.
Yeah.
Probably because since this one didn't have as much action, I guess the artist was able to focus on, well, instead of trying to put them in a pose, how do they, how do I make him look a little better as far as some of the face details? I feel like compared to the first two.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like you said, I feel like the panels are a little better or bigger, which gives the artist a little bit more room. But obviously, I'll get back to this. They're trying to figure out what happened,
Right.
and they find that they got some intelligence reports that Dooku and Maul were fighting, but then they see clues that there are other people there. The interesting thing too is that later on we learn that some of the participants that were in the battle got rid of the evidence that they were even there, just to
Yeah.
throw them off too. So that was kind of interesting too. Um, so I gotta tell you something funny. This character here, Master Lapel, I think is her
Yeah.
name. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I've never seen her before. She'll probably die.
I completely thought that same thing, and I was
Yeah.
actually just gonna look up as well if I can remember the character's spelling, if this was her only appearance or not.
Yeah.
I know what it says here in a moment.
Yeah. But so they're on the planet. They're surveying what was going on. And you've got Master Mace Windu with his usual scowly, frowny face.
Right. Never be
But
happy, that one.
yeah, never happy. So Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that's the cool thing too. You get some, like, if this was like a live action, you get some like really good characters in this story too. You got obviously
Yeah.
Mace Windu comes in, Count Dooku is in it, Darth Maul, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
It's really great. So we've got all the
Yeah, it's
fan.
definitely a good cast of characters, and it's a good way to just in general where you finally get to see the Jedi in this story to see
Yeah.
how they deal with this situation.
On a
Because
mission.
yeah, like because the first two issues is just about the dark and darker side, and here we get to actually see how the situation looks, from the perceived good side.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, Tipley, Master Tipley is her name.
Tip.
So, and
We're
we
close.
have Isla Sakura on this mission as well. Everybody, all hands on deck. And this is when they find out, obviously, that the Mandalorians are involved as well, and they're trying to figure out, why.
She's been in Clone Wars. Tipley has.
Tipley, really?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what episodes here.
Does it say what species she is?
I probably did. I'm trying to figure out what episode she appeared in.
Yeah.
Unknown and Conspiracy. Oh, Unknown was the main one, actually. Conspiracy,
Okay.
she's in there in a flashback.
All right, yeah, we'll have to check her out.
Season 5, episode 12, if I'm looking at this right. Oh, no, season 6,
Okay,
episode 1, my bad.
interesting. Well, that's
Sure,
kind of
yeah.
cool that they brought her in for
Yeah.
the comic book.
Yeah, definitely a later edition. And interesting to
yeah.
have her here.
So they find out the Mandalorians are part of all this. They're trying to figure out what's going on, and they realize that in the system that they're in, there is a black sun. What do you
Strong
call it?
foothold, is that what it says there?
Yeah. A known Mandalorian supply outpost is there also. So there's all sorts of players happening,
Yeah,
doing
addressing
stuff.
addressing the Mandalore situation there.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm again, and I'm digging the art. I mean,
yeah.
the drawings are pretty good on this
She
one.
typically looks cool, and I'm looking at her 3D renders too, and she's a cool looking character. I don't remember her from that episode.
Yeah,
Where
neither
like,
do
because both
I.
of us thought the same thing, but
Yeah, we'll have to
yeah.
go back. So we get the scene after this big battle. You've got Count Dooku and General Grievous
Oh yeah.
bound, and I feel like General Grievous could probably just kind of
Yeah,
rip out
I did
and
think that
walk
because he's
away.
quite a big figure
Yeah,
being held down but like that. Maybe he
But-
knows better since he's defenseless.
yeah. But obviously, Maul calls up Palpatine and says, "Look at these weak fools. You're not going to win." And Palpatine, it's interesting. Palpatine's like, "Yeah, whatever, kill them. I don't need them anymore."
Right.
Maul is like, you're weak because look at they're on their knees, and Palpatine's like, "I'm not on my knees. I'm not weak. They're the ones that are weak."
Right.
I feel like throughout this series so far, they really kind of nailed the characteristics of all the characters here,
I would think so, yeah.
especially Palpatine. I think, besides his image being drawn fairly well, I think they kind of captured the essence of how much of a dick he is,
Right. No, it's definitely. I mean, you bring up a good point because, like, we're 3 or 4 issues through this, and it's like this is such a great story where it's like, I'm glad that we still got this story in some medium,
Yeah, right.
even if it wasn't the original intended Clone Wars animation. But I mean, I don't think there's a better medium to turn to for your second choice other than comics in this
Sure.
for this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Maul tells Palpatine that obviously, the end game here is to team up with Mother Talzin to, I forgot what are they're talking about Mother Talzin,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a little back and forth here between master and former apprentice.
Right.
And again, Palpatine, he's got these lines that are like just perfectly him.
Yeah.
And Maul says, what does he say? Since new apprentices are apparently so easy to find, and obviously he's talking about how Palpatine just kind of uses
Right.
these characters until they're of no use, and
Yeah.
Palpatine's like, be careful. This revenge game, you're not good at it.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting because we get to see. Well, I will circle back to it, but like we really try to see the manipulators, both
Right.
of them, in play in this issue,
Yeah,
and this
sure.
being the first of that.
I mean, besides Maul and Palpatine, I mean, Dooku as well. He's in an awkward position here, and they're asking him to, join forces instead of being a prisoner. But they bring Grievous back into the jail cell, and what does Nick says? It's funny, I don't recognize Tipley, but I do recognize her twin sister, Tiplar.
See, I didn't remember her either, but
Yeah.
she does look very. I wouldn't have known they were sisters if they didn't tell me they were sisters.
Yeah, that's funny. Oh, yeah, we'll have to go back and look. So, obviously, the game plan is to try to get Dooku, to join forces with them, even after they got their butts kicked.
Right.
And again, beautiful panels, great art. They the Jedi kind of track them to an asteroid field. It's always an asteroid field.
Always.
And this is kind of where they give you a little bit of a timeline so you don't get lost. Obi-Wan says, "My last encounter with Maul didn't go so well." And Tipley says, "He murdered the Duchess Satine, someone you cared for deeply." And obviously, we know that from the Clone Wars.
Right.
He seems like he got a little defensive there. He's like, "Yeah, I cared for her, but my emotions are in check. So relax, Tipley."
So he claims.
So he claims, exactly. It would have been nice to have maybe explored a little bit of that storyline in the Kenobi series as well, because it feels like they dropped the ball on bringing that storyline.
Definitely some things they could have done better in that show.
Yeah. So they're circling and going around this asteroid field, and I think is that
Cody,
yeah,
I think.
that's
Yeah.
Cody. So Cody finds them, um, and getting back into the observation deck of whatever ship that Maul and Dooku are on. But they're again, they're Maul is trying to coax Count Dooku into serving him and joining forces with him. Um, and Dooku says something later on that I think again it just nails it when it comes to his character. Maul is obviously kind of maniacal here, telling him, you got to join me. Forget about
Mhm.
that old man. He calls the Palpatine
Right.
old man earlier, and you know, Dooku is pretty loyal to Palpatine, and even
Right.
though he knows what's going on, but there's a little dark side magic going on here with Maul, and this is where he basically brings Mother Talzin in to talk with uh,
Right.
with Dooku.
Very
Um,
interesting.
yeah, and again, the placement of the panels is really great. I love seeing Dooku's close up of his
Yeah.
eye. It's really good. He gets obviously a little bit of an apology from Talzin because
Yeah.
Talzin and Dooku were adversaries at one time, but
Hmm.
now it's interesting how the Sith and the dark side are master manipulators, only using you when it serves their own purpose. Of
Yeah,
course.
yeah. I mean, this is the big thing for me is we got a big scene with Palpatine and then a big scene with Talzin, and it's interesting to see like the parallel of how both of them try to use their own players in a sense.
Right. So yeah, Talzin tells Dooku that Maul is her son, and he's like, "What?" Talzin, plays Maul's situation and portrays him as almost a victim. Um,
Right.
but she basically says, "Come and join me."
Rule the galaxy, or choose, or you can
Yeah,
choose to die here alone.
yeah. Back to the Jedi ships. Cody does find um, the
The base.
hidden base, which is it's not on the asteroid; it's actually in the asteroid, which is kind of
Right.
cool. Um, so they launch the attack, and they start heading out there.
Cue big battle scene.
Yes. So this is kind of cool. You got the Mandalorian that comes in and says, there's a ship, the rebel ships are coming in. Yeah, Maul blocked their transmissions before they can scan us, but it's obviously too late. They've already seen that. You get a nice little panel here where Dooku is obviously, using a little force magic
Very cool.
to see what does he do. He does something on the
He
panel. I think
opens
he,
up
he
the
opens up
presses
the
the
door.
button to
I
unlock.
I love this shot of
Hmm.
Grievous sitting in prison with his legs crossed
Yeah.
like an angry 12-year-old.
Yeah, that's certainly one way to put it. You're not wrong. Yeah.
He's like chilling, but it's kind of cool too because so the door opens and the Mandalorian's a little confused, and Grievous. This is a great shot. But Grievous says, "Perhaps you're not as useless after all, Count." So this is where he jumps into action and escapes.
Yeah, yeah, and that is a nice shot. And there's another shot of Grievous I like here in a moment
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
Very cool.
So the Jedi are on their way and they're ready to attack.
Look at that. Makes it look like
Um,
there's a lot more clones than there really is.
yeah, in that small ship. So here are the launch bays on the side of the rock face of the
Cool looking base
ship.
too. I like
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. So they're obviously they're launching those gauntlet fighters that Mandalorians are known to have, and the battle ensues.
Yeah.
Again, another nice space battle. Again, we talked about how this series is kind of action packed from the get go, and it doesn't seem to let up.
Yeah, I mean, definitely not as much this one, but we get that promised action for sure.
Yeah.
And those are definitely well drawn stuff there. Like I really do like that panel down there.
Mm-hmm.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So far, there's a new comic book that's coming out. I think in September. I think it's called Find the Falcon, and it's Han Solo centric. But
For the Falcon.
yeah, something like that. And I saw the cover, and it's supposed to be kind of like an older Han Solo and an older Lando, but they look nothing like Han Solo or Lando.
See how that turns out.
Yeah.
I'm a little intrigued by how that one will turn out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, I think I love just watching the panels and the artwork. Obviously, Grievous is on his way to escape. This panel right here is freaking awesome. I would love to have this framed, even in this shape.
That's the Grievous panel that stood out to me, especially
Yeah.
seeing the blood there, which is something that they wouldn't have been able to get away with on
Right.
Cartoon Network. So that's just very cool too, because it's like I can't think of any other time we would have officially seen blood on Grievous.
Yeah. And the detail's so great. I mean, blood across his face mask, on his fingers, obviously. You see you see the texture of his eyelid and his eye. But his line too is like, those of you who can still stand, return to your master and tell him to send more men.
Yeah, that's awesome. See, I'd love to just see more Grievous, but also a typical Grievous fashion, he gets into an escape pod and goes away.
Takes off, yeah. So obviously, finally, Darth Maul convinces Dooku to join forces, and Dooku doesn't want to die there, so he's like, "All right, I love this. This middle frame is like, all right, you convinced me. Let's go kill some Jedi together."
Right, pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. He takes his lightsaber, and it's funny. These shots are always dramatic because I'm like, you locked him in there. Don't you have the key to unlock him? You have to be so dramatic and use your lightsaber.
Got time for that.
Yeah. So obviously, Dooku has joined forces, and I think because Dooku and Maul joined forces, that kind of confuses everybody because they just left a location where they were fighting each other. But the clone troopers and Obi-Wan and Master Tipley are gaining ground, trying to get to the control center, trying to get to Maul and Dooku. They're fighting off the forces, the Mandalorian forces there in the hallway. And this is where, they see Maul and Dooku for the first time, and they realize, oh, crap, they are working together. What's going on? They realize that it's a little bit more dangerous than it turned out to be, since they are joined forces.
Yeah. Clones out in space, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, unless this is the hangar bay, and then they're just on the hangar bay because here comes another gunship, and
hard to say from that angle.
Yeah, and then Mace and Isla arrive. This is a great frame too. Good pose, good comic book pose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Mace is like, I've had enough. I'm going to smile again.
Yeah, maybe once he's in custody.
Yeah. But, yeah, real good, action here. Finally, a fair fight. They're fighting.
Coffee.
And the ever so familiar blue light blast of a dark side user. The electrical, ultimate power.
Limited, you could say.
Yes. Exactly. So Darth Maul is doing some karate chops, and they're getting there. They've got the Mandalorians that are coming, but
It's just, yeah,
This is pretty badass. Count
Quite
Dooku uses
quite
the
brutal too.
Force, to bring Tipley to him, and another great shot. Tipley bites the bullet, or bites the lightsaber, as it were. But again, pretty dynamic. I like the kinetic energy of this one shot.
Oh yeah, for
She
sure,
drops her lightsaber, and Count Dooku is
definitely.
holding steady with a lightsaber in her gut. This one probably didn't miss all the organs and went right through all of them.
You're right.
Obi-Wan has lost another master, and the
Master
Mandalorians
Tipley.
are getting their backpack rockets ready. You know, it's cool because one of the things that I notice, as the action starts to kind of, ramp up, we see the panels kind of not, I want to say haphazardly drawn, but I think there's some nice overlap on the panels. They're not straight anymore. They're a little more action
Yeah,
oriented, and I like that when the comic book kind of gives you an excuse
yeah.
to try to hold on to your seat, because I know there's a lot of action there.
This comic in general, oh, well, not this page particularly, but like
Yeah.
last one, it's not for generic boxes like that. They figure out how to change it up, which
Yeah.
definitely provides an interesting feel.
Yeah. So obviously, big explosion. Everybody gets knocked over, and they're going to try and make their escape. Obi-Wan is holding Master Tipley. They're heading for the gauntlets. Don't let them escape. The clones are taking care of business there. Yeah, now I'm curious. I'm going to go see those episodes with Tipley in them.
The first episode of season 6, supposedly.
Kenobi or Maul, a little foreshadowing here. What's up, Andrew? Good
What's
to see
up?
you. Don't forget to watch the rest of it at the beginning. We TiVoed it for you.
Yeah, exactly.
So a little foreshadowing. Obviously, he says, "Don't worry, Kenobi. We'll see each other again soon enough." And they take off as allies. Count Dooku looks like he didn't even break a sweat, killing a Jedi.
Yeah.
And they take off. And then Mace Windu gets a headache. They capture some Mandos. That's funny. What just happened?
Right.
We get the aftermath of this battle, and Chancellor Palpatine is calling and saying, "Hey, what's going on?" Mace Windu tells Chancellor Palpatine that it appears that Count Dooku and Darth Maul are in league with each other, which this is kind of a cool part. It kind of confirms, it confirms in these characters' eyes who the master is and who the apprentice is from episode 1, when Yoda says, "Always two there are, a master and apprentice."
Right.
And obviously the Phantom Menace refers to Palpatine, but within the story, we're like, well, who could it be? So this is kind of a cool little, I don't want to say, retcon or retroactive way of kind of giving them an alternative way of thinking of Maul and Dooku, because now they do think that that quote about always two there are, they're saying, it's Dooku, and Palpatine's like, whew, dodged that bullet. Yeah. So this line, I wanted to ask you, because I have a couple of theories here. Obviously, Chancellor's talking to Mace Windu. They're having a conversation, a puzzle to be sure. Well, you've done all you can. It is unfortunate that this opportunity slipped through our fingers. And he's talking to Mace, obviously, in this frame, but in the next frame, he's obviously as as Darth Sidious here, and talking to Dooku, saying, "I fear in the end it could prove disastrous for the Republic."
Right.
Um, but that's interesting because it's Dooku saying that, and again, getting back to writing these characters true to their original, form. I almost do feel, and Brad and I have talked about this before. I feel like Dooku he thought he was doing things for the right reasons to try and save the Republic from whatever, what the threat was. And I feel like this is a little bit of that. He's not saying, great, we teamed up with Maul. He's not saying, great, we destroyed and decimated the Mandalorians during this. He is generally fearful of teaming up with Talzin, or at least what that implies. And I think that's pretty interesting that they decided to, stop the story at this point. Issue 3 has ended.
It is an interesting point to end it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do love the reflection though there.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think of that transition though? Because at first it is a little confusing because he's talking to Maul to Mace Windu.
Yeah.
And then over here he's not. You obviously, that's Dooku.
Well, no, that's Palpatine there.
No.
Himself.
Who is this here?
That's his reflection.
Oh, I thought this was Palpatine's hologram.
Yeah, it's Palpatine speaking to himself there.
Yeah.
But it is an interesting thing though, where it's like, this idea of Palpatine's like, well, okay, what if my plan starts falling apart here, but it would still end in the Republic falling.
Right. Yeah.
So it's definitely very interesting.
And again, I think Count Dooku in the prequels is a very interesting character. He captures Obi-Wan and basically tells him the truth, and Obi-Wan doesn't believe him. You go back to watch Attack of the Clones, and Dooku pretty much lays it all out to Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan's like, no, I don't believe you. And Dooku's like, bro, trust me, bro. Trust me. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So what did you think of issue 3 then?
It was a solid issue to carry. It's kind of, for me, it was that point of a story. It's like, you have that great beginning and then you have that great end. Well, I mean, we're obviously not at the end part yet, but a lot of those stories definitely does have like a dip, from getting to point A to point B. And well, I still think it was a solid issue to carry along the story. For me, it was that personal, little story dip in the middle.
Sure.
And
we still had action.
Yeah, it was still good. You still got your action. You got a cool space battle there, but it definitely felt very much like, well, here's point A to point B in a sense, but also we could seeing this stuff with the Jedi though was cool though, because it brought us back to not just being a story about dark side versus a darker side.
Yeah, I agree. I think this series has really surprised me. I think I'm really enjoying it. It does play out like an episode of the Clone Wars, and I love it. I think it's got everything that an episode of Clone Wars has. You've got the action, you've got all the familiar characters. There's stakes. Obviously, we get a death. A Jedi is killed. So overall, I mean, so far again, I'm really enjoying the series. Next issue number 4 is the last one, the conclusion.
Correct.
Yeah. So
see how it all wraps up.
Really looking forward to that wrap up for sure.
Definitely, it's been a great series. I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah. Excellent. Any other final thoughts on Son of Dathomir issue number 3?
I don't got much more to say about this one. Another solid addition to the Grievous's collection.
Yeah. One of the things that I enjoy about this series, and a lot of comic books do this, the writing style is a little derivative of the movies sometimes. When you get to, certain scenes with familiar characters, they'll repeat a line just to say, hey, audience, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. I feel like this one is not doing that. Obviously, we get a lot of familiar characters, and they're kind of keeping it fresh. They're keeping it new, and they're moving the story along.
Yeah, definitely.
There are comic books where Darth Vader comes up to some imperial, an imperial officer and says, you can dispense with the pleasantries, Commander. I'm like, he said that in Return of the Jedi. Let's leave that there. Stop saying that. Write something new for Vader. So it's cool that this series, is not doing that, and they're keeping things fresh. Really enjoying Son of Dathomir issue 3, 1, 2, and 3, and probably 4. I think we're on a roll here.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a very solid streak for sure. So,
excellent.
See how it ends. Exciting.
Very exciting. Excellent, sir. Thank you for joining me again on this one. I hope you had a wonderful. Was it last week? We had a holiday. We had a lot of things going on.
There's a bunch going on. Yeah.
Bunch of stuff happening, but good to see you again live here
Absolutely.
on Scarif Live. Why don't you tell folks that are still around where people can find you to say hello there?
Go check out the Dingus Den, as you can see at Dingus Den right there, where we're talking about all sorts of other different comics. We're actually this Sunday we are going to be talking about Thanos Quest, which is the official prequel to the Infinity Gauntlet, which I'm very excited to get into. And then 2 days after, we're going to be getting into the next episode of Shell Talk, which is the return to New York. So that's a big one that we're having coming out there, which will be really cool. So we should keep an eye out over on the Dingus Den.
Excellent. And give a follow and subscribe. Find you everywhere, and then we'll check it out. Excellent. Folks in the chat, thank you for stopping by. You had Andrew and Andrew. Andrew Haley and Andrew over at the Science Fictionary. Thank you very much. Kylo Customs. Let's see, Backyard TARDIS, and Nicholas Schaefer. Thank you so much, guys. And folks, if you're catching this on the replay, thank you very much. Episode or series Son of Dathomir. We conclude next week. We'll see you here at the same time, hopefully on the same channel if I don't have problems again with the streaming.
See what happens.
We'll see what happens. Excellent. All right, folks. Thank you so much. This has been a live comic review. Dark Horse comic, Son of Dathomir. We'll talk to you guys. We'll see you out there on the interwebs.
Of course.